You're looking at Unrendered. I am Tony Regisford, and my guest is Luke Brown. Luke, when we went out to the break, I was mentioning the point about, this quest for national heroes. And, we hear E.T. Joshua, we hear Milton Cato, we hear George McIntosh. And 9 times out of 10, 90% of the times, we are focusing on, I feel, people who have contributed in the political arena. And I'm not discrediting contributions made in that arena. But very often the J.P. Eustaces of the world, get sidelined. How can we address our minds, really? You've come up with J.P. Eustace, okay? How can we address our minds to people more like that than, say, the Milton Catos?
Well, first of all, I would like to say that it could well be that politicians have a claim to national hero as well. I'm not trying to discredit the bid of Milton Cato or the bill of E.T. Joshua or others for national hero. But one of the things that I said, even in the article that appeared in this weekend in the Searchlight newspaper, was that you don't have to be a politician. I'm a politician, but I'm prepared to say that you don't have to be a politician to be a visionary and pioneering leader, and by extension, a national hero. So I think that we're seeing eye to eye, where that is concerned. And, it's left to us to search ourselves and to search our history for individuals who may have made a very vital contribution to our national development, but who may not have been seen, as a national hero as such. I mean, we spoke about J.P. Eustace, and we spoke about his contributions to the development of education. J.P. Eustace, of course, was an optometrist and optician as well. He was the first eye specialist in St. Vincent also. He was the first eye specialist in St. Vincent. He was a preacher. He loved the Lord. He devoted his life to Christian principles, carried out several missions in various parts of our country. He even was involved.
So he was a selfless individual, really.
Very, very selfless.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think that a contribution that could be made to removing the myth, if there is that myth, that only politicians could be national heroes, this is a contribution along those lines. We have a J.P. Eustace who obviously has good credentials and who we think should be considered.
I get the sense
hero.
as well that when we talk about national hero, fine, we've got Joseph Chatoyer, the paramount chief, as a national hero, with good cause, I feel, right? Even if it's symbolic, because Chatoyer, though, his history and his life may not be as known as, say, J.P. Eustace, because he's more recent, far more recent, and a lot more data is available on J.P. Eustace than say, on Chatoyer, right? But fine, I'm more than okay with Chatoyer being our national hero. Must we, though, because national hero title is available, must we be in this perpetual search for, a national hero? And are we not in danger then of lowering standards just to satisfy this quota of people that we think we must have?
Well, I don't know if there's a written or unwritten quota.
It's certainly unwritten, but in people's heads, I sense that there is, that we must have another one. We must name another one.
But let me first of all, let me congratulate Joseph Chatoyer for the work that he has done. I think he is a deserving national hero.
So do I.
I think as well, if we are going to search for national heroes, there's only one basis on which we could carry out that search. Does the person satisfy the criteria laid down in the Act? Now, we could have a debate on whether or not there should be stricter criteria, it should be more restrictive, whether or not the contribution should be of a certain qualitative nature or quantitative nature. As
does the Act, just hold your thoughts, but does the Act state anywhere that this must be a posthumous accolade?
It does. So you can be a living hero.
Good.
As the Prime Minister made clear
well, I'm
in his
happy
address
about
yesterday.
Right.
Even though our neighbors Barbados have a different policy that allowed Sir Garfield Sobers to be named a national hero there.
There's a danger in doing that, of course, because you don't want to have the embarrassing situation where you have to strip one of that title. I mean, you're dead, you can't do anything else from your grave. But you're alive. You know, I'm not saying Garfield Sobers is going to go about and rape someone, but suppose he does. What do you do?
Well, I don't think it's on the cards, and that is on the cards. And you know, if somebody is going to be a national hero, I think they should have characteristics that would not predispose them to certain forms of behavior that could ultimately disqualify them, even if they were still alive. That said,
but you could be setting yourself up because, you know, people, there's a saying, always expect the unexpected. Sure. And, you know, people can go on a tangent. And to me, that's just my point. I agree with the Prime Minister.
It is a safe provision.
Yes.
And I take that point. You
but
know.
I threw you off guard there with what we were talking about, right? Let's go back. You were congratulating Joseph Chatouet, and you were talking about our search for national heroes. You don't think there's a real quota that we should fill, but we're talking about standards. What are the standards that one should set for national hero?
Well, I think it's left to debate right now. The standards are established in the law. Right now, there's also a parallel discussion taking place as to whether or not we should move into a system of national honors. So that will take off some pressure for the national hero title to be awarded to a specific number of people and so on, because we have systematic national honors. People could qualify for this honor or that honor, and of course there would be successive levels of honors. So I think that discussion should be encouraged. I don't know how that would conclude, you know, whenever it concludes. But while we talk about Chatouet being a national hero, I recognize that we could perhaps, especially at this time, pay tribute to national heroes who in the broader Latin American region. And one such individual that I think should be identified at this time is Simon Bolivar out of Venezuela, because of course the world mourns now the unfortunate death of Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. And his revolution in Venezuela was a Bolivarian revolution. It was inspired by the ideas of this great 19th century freedom fighter, you might say, for Venezuela. So I make the association between Joseph Chatouet in St. Vincent and Simon Bolivar in Venezuela, because I was going through an ALBA agenda, which is a diary-like book really, which outlines some of the policies and principles of ALBA. And in that agenda, they celebrate our national hero, Joseph Chatouet, as well. Yeah. So it seems as if there is a natural affinity to the civilizations which has been on one hand led by Chatouet, and on another hand, that which was led by Simon Bolivar. In that vein, really, it's cause and result, basically. So there's a cause. There's this cause to liberate people from, you know, oppression, from people who dominate them and dominate them in an unfair way to their advantage. It's like, you know, the emancipators of slavery. Bolivar, you know, liberating Venezuela from the Spanish. You know, Chavez liberating Venezuela, I suppose, from the greedy oil merchants, okay, who wanted the Venezuelan oil for nothing and had Venezuelans living as second-class citizens in their own country and living in heaps of poverty. Terrible poverty. Right. I mean, when you look at the story of Venezuela before Chavez and the hardships that the people of Venezuela encountered. I mean, there was a time in the midst of considerable oil wealth that 62% of the Venezuelan population was living in poverty. 62%. You understand? This is where they're wealthy executives, and this is where the oil wealth is being used to fund lavish lifestyles in developed countries. I mean, that is just unjust. I mean, Bolivar in the 18th century fought for freedom, unity and integration in Latin America. And I think Chavez, to a very significant degree and a very commendable degree, carried on that fight in a different form. I mean, his might have been economic wars, for example, because he had to stand up to the Washington Consensus and the neoliberal agenda. He gave us ALBA as an alternative to the free trade area of the Americas, and that was a significant alternative because the free trade area of the Americas was really intended to serve the commercial interests of developed countries at our disadvantage, again, to perpetuate the kind of poverty that we've seen in our parts of the world. And, you know, the contribution of Chavez and that Bolivarian revolution was of historic and international significance. And I would like students who grew up in St. Vincent and the Grenadines to pay attention to that contribution. I'd like the region itself to pay attention so that we could create a sphere where we could continue the work that Chavez started in our time, so that we don't really lose any of the gains.
So you don't squander it.
Yeah, so
you know, there are other such figures. Fidel Castro, of course. Had his own liberating cause.
Yeah.
Let's take it to the local context now. In what vein do you see, I'm not talking about the current Prime Minister, I'm talking about anybody who desires to be a Prime Minister. I know your political opponent desires to be such. Yeah. But be it him, be it you, be it Ralph Gonsalves or whoever else, what is the cause?
Well, in our case, the cause is the economic liberation of Vincentians. And this is not just, and this is economic liberation from many entities, including multinational corporations. And I talk about multinational corporations, I talk about companies here who charge extremely high rates for the use of their services. And these companies then profit considerably on our backs, and these profits are sent abroad to fund lifestyles that are lavish elsewhere, while we have poverty at our backs. We fight against the imposition of austerity measures in our part of the world that led to some of the hardships that we saw in Venezuela, and that could very well lead to hardships in St. Vincent and the Grenadines if they are imposed. We fight against the obsession with deregulation, because in the United States there was this persistent 30-year deregulation rant that effectively developed a financial system that was susceptible to the kind of collapse that we saw in this financial crisis. We fight against the notion that privatization of all state-owned enterprises is the necessary and the solution to our economic problems. Why would we want to privatize a healthcare system, our healthcare system, for example, to subject our people to the mercy of a commercial enterprise that is interested in
some may argue it's efficient. But let's take a break, and when we come back to the final segment, I'm going to allow you to continue in the vein that you're going in. So fear not when we come back.
All right.
This is Unrendered. I'm Tony Regisford, and when we come back, we'll be having our final chat, in this program at least, with Luke Brown.
Okay.